Today we're going to talk about whether this 3-year-old camera, the Canon EOS RP, is still a viable product in 2022. Let's get into it. Now you may ask, why are we talking about this camera in 2022? Well, for me personally, for the last 2 or so years, I've been focusing on shooting and learning about cinema cameras, and I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking about actually upgrading my next camera, and I'm leaning more towards the Canon, if not at least an RF mount ecosystem. So I've slowly begun refamiliarizing myself with the Canon platform, not only in the mindset of upgrading, but just in the spirit of making the most of what I have now. Because as they say, the best camera will always be the one that you have with you. And I've been very surprised with what I've been able to create with this new kit. So some of the benefits of the EOS RP include the fact that it is a full frame camera and it is very affordable. Usually you can find it somewhere between $900 to $1,000, just depending on the time of the year. And of course the new RF mount, which usually will give you more compact lenses, which will give you superb image quality for the fact that the rear element of the lens sits so close to the sensor. That also means that the RF mount is easily adaptable, whether you're trying to adapt to EF lenses, PL, and I'm sure there are going to be other lens mounts that you can adapt to as well. Some of the other benefits that it has does include the fact that it does have dual pixel autofocus, only in HD. It does have the tilt and flip screen that we all love so much. The I/O on there was pretty impressive at the time that it came out, considering that it gave you mini HDMI compared to micro HDMI that a lot of the newer RF mount cameras have. You also have a USB-C port, and you have a mic and headphone in jack, which is pretty standard now, but it was not always the case when this camera came out in 2019. Also, oddly enough, it has 24 frames per second, and if you remember when this camera came out,
doesn't shoot 24 frames per second.
There's no 24 frames per second.
What? No 24 frames per second?
that is also a sales point, which never should have been something that we had to worry about, but it does have it now, so that's also something to be aware of. Now, as with any camera, there are going to be some drawbacks as well. The first ones I'll start with are going to be the battery and the fact that there is only one card slot. The battery, I think, was rated to give you 250 to 400 shots. I don't do a lot of photography, so I can't say, but I know for one, battery life is going to be a lot better than the Pocket for any pocket camera, which isn't saying a lot. Typically, I can go a few hours, if not more, throughout the day on one battery charge. Can't really do anything about the card slot, just get a bigger card. Of course, yeah, if your card craps out on you, you will be screwed. There's no real fix for that one. Well, actually there is one, but we'll talk about that in a different video. Now, the biggest issue that most of us had when Canon announced their new RF mount line of cameras was going to be the crop that you had in 4K. I think with the EOS RP specifically, the crop was about 1.6, and also you lost the ability to use dual pixel autofocus in 4K. Now, if you're historically a Canon shooter and you like the full frame look and that's what you're buying this camera for, then that will possibly be an issue for you in 4K. But for those of us that are coming maybe from a crop sensor camera or a Super 35 sensor cinema camera, the crop may not be the biggest issue, but also if you are a Canon fan and you love their dual pixel autofocus, that is a bit of a letdown in 4K. While there are ways to bypass many of the issues listed above, for me, coming from a Super 35 equivalent sensor on a cinema camera, the lack of autofocus and the crop in 4K was not the biggest deal for me. And at the end of the day, I ended up putting this camera to use on a couple of professional projects. And while using a mirrorless camera on set is not ideal in any circumstances, I was actually happy with the end product that I got on both projects. And it's very hard to beat this camera as an entry into the Canon RF full frame ecosystem, and it's at a great price point as well. Now, we will go a little more in depth on RF lenses in another upcoming video, but in the meantime, let me know if you have any thoughts or questions in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.